and full course yellow is deployed. Full course yellow is deployed.
Yes, hello everybody, and welcome to another edition of Full Course Yellow. Here, coming to you live from the In-Pit Lane Corporate Headquarters, high above beautiful Lake Geneva, beyond the suburban curtain. Now, I am loaded up with the dreaded lurgy this week, so I'm going to be basically sneezing and coughing and feeling very sick for most of the program. But thankfully, I am not alone. I am being more than ably backed up by my two compatriots here in the program, in Peter Johnson and Mark Jones. And gentlemen, welcome to the program.
Hello, Brett. Hello, Mark.
Good evening, Peter. Good evening, Brett. Fantastic to be here on a Tuesday night amongst the motorsporting world.
The cognoscenti, the motorsport cognoscenti, I think we are. We're an elite group. We're a small but elite group. Although we had many people. We had 500 people who watched last week's show, which is one of our bigger audiences. I think whenever we talk about Shane Van Gisbergen, we get a few. Stragglers pop in from the USA. So and people are
awesome.
No, I think it's
around the
I
world.
think it's more Ronald and Steve. I think it's more Ronald and Steve. His dogs.
Yeah. Yes, and did we congratulate Jess and Shane last week? I'm not sure whether we did, but
we did.
Congratulate. Yeah. They got married in the same way that I always thought. If in the unlikely event they ever did get married, that's the way I'd want to do it. It's sort of just walk in an office.
What, in a prison?
Yeah, in a prison. Talk about some people said, well, they could have at least gone to Las Vegas or something and done the Elvis wedding or something like that. But no, they're very practical people, and as I can see Shane just going, no, look, just it's a legal thing. Let's just go in and get it done. And it's he doesn't strike me as being a romantic. I might be wrong. I mean, just prove if you
just wore a white outfit, and Shane was wearing black, so they're at least color coded appropriately.
Well, that's good, but then he went off and celebrated by finishing 14th on the oval at Richmond. So so well done. Although he's still upsetting people over there. There's an increasing push from a few people, including people who have in the past have been supporting of him and who have come out now and said, "Hey, look, this is becoming silly now. We've got
he's too good.
we've got five. If the chances are, if we have 5 road courses, he's going to win all 5. We're not going to get close. And if he goes into the playoff and things go, there are various pathways where he could end up winning this whole bloody thing. So let's be very careful about this. We wanted to shake things up, but we didn't want to shake things up that badly. But anyway, speaking of shaking things up, Mark, you were at least on Saturday down at Queensland Raceway, and
oh goodness,
saw a couple of big events. We'll get onto the production cars a bit, the fight in the night a bit later on. But let's start with the TA2, and it was despite not winning the second race, it was after an oil line failure. It was an overall win to Alice Buckley and Tim Slade. Despite being a bit underweight, but I got to say, I put this up on the line. I think Alice is very, very important to Australian motorsport. I think we've been looking for years for a talented young female driver who's the real deal, and we've had a lot that probably are, but didn't get the push that they need or the support that they needed for one reason or another. But Alice is looking to me like she, in every respect, behind the wheel, in front of the camera, just about everywhere. She's looking to be the one that could take that step up, one step up further from perhaps Leanne Tander in terms of being a genuine regular on the supercar. On the supercar field that is there not just because she's a female, but because she's bloody talented.
Well, absolutely, yeah, and she's proper talent. She's been at it for 2 or 3 years now. She's come up through the XLs, and she was very quickly at the pointy end of the XLs. I mean, to be fair, she's had a well-funded XL team, and her racing with her 2 older cousins, the Wood brothers, but that's uh, but having an effective team behind you doesn't pay dividends without that talented driving. And she stepped up to Toyota 86s, her first appearance in Toyota 86s at Sydney Motorsport Park, no less. Not one of her home tracks, and she clean swept the scholarship round in her first appearance in '86s down there. So, yeah, she marked herself out quite early on repeated occasions. She's been doing some of the bigger the GR Cup 86 races now as well, but this opportunity has come with Trans Ams, with TA2s, and this Chevy Motorsport deal that's going along with IES Motorsport team that also runs Jared Hughes, who's chasing the championship, and also along the way putting the sword to the concept that it's all Mustangs in TA2s. We've got we've now got three really quick Camaros right up at the pointy end of the field now, once you include Tom Davies as well. And there, Alice won her races over the course of the weekend from the front. She didn't inherit the win. She took pole position. She ran at the front. She pulled away in several occasions. She was the quickest of the bunch in the field. There's no there's no, oh yeah, let's give any kind of a she's any kind of unfair advantage at all. She's doing it properly, doing it well, and she's absolutely a proper talent. She's had Tim Slade on her side, doing a bit of mentoring with her as well, and made a fantastic co-driver for her as well. But in both the enduro races, Alice started the race, handed over to Tim with the car in strong position. It's just a bit unfortunate in the end that an oil line came off in the second race, and they were able to get out and finish, but they lost 6 laps in the second race. But yeah, the results in the other races were just superlative. And shout out at the same time to the runners-up, Lachlan Evanet in the Ash Jarvis Racing Mustang. They're one of the smallest teams in TA2s. The team owner, Ash Jarvis, was the original TA2 champion when the series went nationwide. And he's been racing sports sedans with Colin Smith, with the Smith family team in their Monaro, and also he's a regular co-driver with Nick Brangeley up here in the Gemini versus HQ Enduro that happens every year, and he's one of the guys in the only quick Gemini in the field. And he and Nick put on some fabulous entertainment, and it's just fabulous to see a great result for Lachlan Evanet and his co-driver of the weekend, Jimmy Golding, in the blue and silver. And also, I guess the other draw card out of all of that, even with the dramas that befell him, Jared Hughes has protected his championship and his co-driver, Craig Lowndes, who I think has done a couple of things here and there. There's protected his championship lead against the push from Ben Gomersall, who's second in the points running. So there's all kinds of great things going on in the TA2 series. There was battles all the way through the field. We had some dramas, of course, like in the second race on Saturday, where we had all the co-drivers aboard. There was a pile-up in turn 1 on the race on lap 1, and it put 4 cars out on the spot, and another 3 cars were out of the race within 2 laps of the race restarting from damage. So there was certainly some drama going on a bit. I think Clay Richards and co were one of the teams most affected, along with Brock Payne. There was. But yeah, the TA2s, I'm going on too long. We're 12 minutes in now. I've just raveted on. I enjoyed that TA2s racing so much on the weekend, I just can't stop talking about it.
Pete, did you catch any of it at all?
Yes, I did. Yeah.
What do you think?
There's not much more I can add. Um, it's like I think, as you said, I think Alice is the all rounder. Like she's good with the media, um, and she's good in the car. I think onwards, if she goes onwards and upwards, she's going to be very good.
Yeah, I hope they don't. I hope they don't push her too quickly. That's one thing. I hope that there's enough advice and enough experienced people behind her to sort of say let's take this. Let's not rush her in. I think that was one of the problems they've had in the past. Whenever they get sort of a young driver with a young female driver with a bit of talent, like Chelsea Angelo and a few others, and Leanne Tander, Dee Ferrier, and all of those people that they want to push them up and get them into the top level as soon as possible. She's only 18. She should be in no hurry. I mean, in terms of, and they should just let her move through TA2 and perhaps then into the Trans Am series nationally, and keep her racing if necessary in the Toyotas, and slowly move her way through Super 2. And she doesn't have to be in supercars next year or the year or even the year after. I mean, she could wait until she's 20, 21 and still come in with plenty of experience, plenty of racing miles behind her, and the experience of running those Trans Am cars is going to put her in great stead for the supercars if that's her plan, and I imagine it would be. And it would be a really, really good thing for the sport to have a genuine, front-running young female driver who, as Pete said, is good with the media. What I like about her is I've seen in the past some interviews with her when things haven't gone right, and she's been very positive, but she seems very real. She seems to be, she's not been sort of generated out of, a lot of PR speak or anything like that. She seems to actually be a down-home, hardcore racing driver at heart, and knows she's not going to win everything, and is prepared for it, and is ready to learn from any mistakes that she makes and move on to the next thing. But over the weekend, she didn't really make too many mistakes. Her car was underweight, which was somewhat controversial, but they did point out that the race went longer than they expected it. And I've seen a few sort of idiots online going, "Yeah, well, it wouldn't have happened if if she'd have been a he, like they'd have taken the win off like that." And I don't know whether that's the case or not, but the bottom line is she started from pole, she won her race, she led all the way, she held off, very close competition. She was fast in the enduro. She just ticked all the boxes.
And at the end of the second race, when they interviewed both her and Tim Slade, she said, first of all, they interviewed her, and she said, the car was running faultlessly, and then suddenly that happened, the oil line. I didn't know it was an oil line till now. And she said, well, that's motor racing. And then when they interviewed her and Tim Slade together, there was banter. Like, she said, I promise you, I brought the car back in good condition. And he said, yeah, that's what they all say. And there was banter, and it was great.
Yeah, she does seem to have a good sense of humour. I didn't see that interview, but I've seen in the past where she was with her Chev Racing
Jared Hughes.
Jared Hughes, and they're both young. They seem to have a really good relationship between the two of them. They were joking with each other about he was sort of doing the old beaten by a girl thing, and it's like, yeah, and get used to it, pal, because it's going to keep happening. And they were very sort of, it was a very natural. It wasn't forced. It wasn't sort of WWE scripted sort of stuff. It was just two kids who have grown up racing together, about the same age, really enjoyed sort of getting stuck into each other, and in a good way. And I think they really, it's important for the sport. And people go, oh, why do they keep going on about women driving? We've seen it before. We've seen it. I always go back to cricket. When I was a kid, I used to go down, and when I was playing cricket, I used to go down and I'd see the women would come out and train on an adjacent oval, and you would go and you would watch them, and you would see some of their games sometimes. And this is like in the 1970s, and it was embarrassingly bad. It was awful. I mean, it was just unwatchable. It was like they had no idea. Now you have a look at the top level of women's cricket, and as I've said several times before, one of my favourite cricketers in the world to watch is Ash Gardner, because she is just an extraordinarily, technically gifted batter, and a great all-rounder, and a great fielder, good bowler, everything, and just ticks all the boxes. And if you have a look at some of the best fast bowlers, they used to look really uncoordinated, and if they could sort of get the ball over 100 k's an hour, you were lucky. Now you've got people like Darcy Brown and Tanya Volemic and those sort of people, coming in, and they've got great actions, and they're bowling in the low to mid 120s, even up to Tanya has sort of got up to 130, I think, at one stage. And let's face it, that's about the standard ball from someone like Scotty Boland. So, they're not desperately slow. And you've got a whole generation of young girls out there who look and then go, oh, no, that's a girl doing it. Oh, Mum, can I play that?
And the Matildas is another great example of that, where they played well above their weight, even with their superstar player injured, when with Australia hosting the World Cup, to make it to the semi-finals. They got one game away from being in the World Cup final, and and there were a whole bunch of great names came out of all of that, and it was and so it when there are women performing well, you see them, they do great, and the whole of the sport it benefits from it. And we've seen that, it's been the example that, like, I guess tennis most notably set a couple of decades ago, and now it's like in the years just before and after COVID, the biggest trends in the two biggest trends in global sport were shorter format, stuff like 2020 cricket, and women's sport. And motorsport was kind of missing out on that. And It's brilliant that if Alice is great for the sport, and if she kicks on, she'll be even better for the sport. But she's got some great people behind her as well, like Tim Slater's mentioned. She's also part of the Norwell gang, which comes out of Paul Morris's operation that's based at the Norwell Motorplex. And there's the extended she's come up through the lower ranks of the sport with her two older cousins, George and Jack Wood. Um, and they've and it hasn't been smooth sailing at times for them as well, because the three of them racing in XLs, a three-car team of XLs, you're going to do a damage at some point, and with with a larger team like that. And sure enough, one of the Wood boys did have a rather nasty crash at one point that wrote off a car. It wasn't necessarily his fault, but yeah, it hasn't. There's been she's I just huge raps on her. I really hope that this is something but yeah, you're absolutely right though, Brett, about not pushing too hard. And I'm sure that the influence of Tim Slade and the guy and the people at Paul Morris's operation will help considerably in keeping in making sure she doesn't get too far too quickly.
Yeah, because I think that's the problem. I mean, you push them too fast, too quickly to the top level. You hype them up too much, and then they're not an instant success. And they're also going to be judged harsher than anybody else. I mean, you've got people running around in the supercars at the moment who haven't run a race, and if they get into the top 10, it's a major story, and no one's sitting there going, oh, what a joke, how do they get in and all that. But you get sort of like someone like Alice, if she comes in and is in that situation where she's struggling at the back of the field, or even if she gets up into 15th, 16th place or something like that. But why is this she's only there because she's a woman, and it's not fair. What about all young talented young guys out there, and what about this driver, and what about that driver? There's always going to be people
Well,
Yeah.
who miss out.
Well,
But I mean, the point is, what she could do potentially for the sport in terms of widening its exposure. And as I've said before, like I go back to that sports marketing conference I went to many years ago with the top sports marketing people in the country, and they were utterly dismissive of motorsport. As when I raised it, it was that woman who turned around and just went pale, male, and stale, utterly irrelevant. And everybody agreed. They just said, "Look, it's a sport watched by middle-aged white guys, and it's very hard to sell because that's not the market that people are after. We need to get more young people in. We need to get all of the various, ethnic groups in, and all of it. That's why the roll racing. I mean, you turn up like when I commentate out at Calder for the roll racing. That crowd is predominantly, under 30, and they are mixed and they are culturally diverse, and they're turning up in really big numbers. I mean, this is people turn they're not turning like we're not talking 25, 30,000, but there's 6, 7, 8,000 to basically what is street registered vehicles, but they turn up without fail, and they're absolutely passionate about it. And if you go through and have a look at all of the drivers and all, there's, it's not Smith and Jones and Davidson and all the rest of it. It's Farik and Yang and Cho Glang and whatever. All up. They're all sort of from various ethnic groups, and there's lots of female drivers involved in that as well. So. Yeah, so it's really good to see. The sport needs to expand, and less of us old white guys, running it. I can say that as an old white guy, I can get away with saying that.
and getting back to one of Mark's points, I know it's on the male side, but having someone like Paul Morris in Alice's corner is a good thing because um, when Brody Kostecki was having his alleged issues, it was Paul Morris that brokered peace and a deal ultimately, and got him back into the sport. So I think Paul Morris will be good for Alice as well.
Yeah, he's certainly got the runs on the board, hasn't he? Certainly anybody who's dealt with him is I've had very little to do with Paul in terms of interviewing, but I know when Melissa did a lot of stuff up at Norwell with various car launches and all the rest of it, and Paul was often there sort of as being one of the drivers and one of the people that she would drive, and she always had very, very good things to say about that whole setup up there, and also about Paul being very good to deal with. So yeah, he's certainly become sort of something of a kingmaker, and the discoverer of stars. And if Alice is one of them, then good luck to it. Apart from that, before we move on to the production cars, Mark, anything else you want to talk about on the TA2 front?
Oh, yeah, it was a thoroughly enjoyable race meeting in that regard. It was there was there was stuff going on everywhere in the TA2s, and it was a big grid, but it was a massive grid. It was mid-20s, and it was. It was and the crowd responded really well. They had grid walks before both of the enduros. I say enduros; they're 40-minute races. I mean, that's as much as you can get without refueling these TA2 cars.
Tell me about that
Yeah,
big
yeah,
walk. They had to wait for them to go up the ladder. Yeah. Anyway,
yeah. There was a little bit of a bottleneck there. Yeah, but yeah, we had some delay. There was fog rolled in at one point on Saturday morning. That delayed things there as well. Um, yeah, it was. Yeah, Tier Two's tremendous fun. It was, mind you, yeah, a bit of car got torn up on Saturday afternoon in the co-driver, the first co-driver race. I get that was certainly a bit of a downside.
Well, it was as you say, it was a good field. I mean, when you sort of say 20 cars. That's that. Nowadays, that's basically
26,
that's
yeah.
a 26 cars is it's a full field of supercars. It's
Mm.
much bigger than you get with a lot of other categories. I mean, we were down at Phillip Island for the AU4 championships, and I think there was like 13 or 14 cars on the field only of which six were with the current cars and they seemed to be absolutely delighted with that, and they were sort of saying, "Oh, we're hoping that eventually we'll get all up. We might get to 18 to 20 cars." So it's going to be interesting to see what happens at Bathurst when you've got the Trans Am cars and the TA2 cars running together, because
Mm.
they were talking at one stage of sort of possibly having more than 40 cars trying to get into that race.
Well, they because of course they did that back at the it was the 12 hour, I think. Support
Yeah, they
they had
run
a
at the 12
merged race,
hours.
not the 12.
Yeah.
Which one was it? They
It,
they
it
had
would
the
have helped if they had been. Either they're in SR or the thing is, because supercars are promoting it, it probably ain't going to happen. But that was the thing I said at Sandown as well with the GT Championship. I mean, they were a bit incongruous being on amongst the GTs threes and GT4s and all that exotica and all the rest of it. But there was no doubt about it that when they came out, that was what the crowd wanted to see.
they're fabulous cars. They move around. They're a bit
Phil
they're
pointing out it was at the 6 hours.
thank you, Phil. I knew that they had
Was that
run
the
at
6 hour?
Bathurst. Uh, not in the 6 hour, but
Yeah.
the two TA2 series came together, ran a combined round, and there was over 40 cars for that, and that was sensational. There was a the You did notice though that there is definitely a difference between the two series. The Nash the I'm stumbling over what the other series is called, but
Yeah, just
yeah,
Trans Am.
the Trans Ams, they basically filled the top 10 down to even down as far as 12, and then you had the top TA2 cars, and the Tier 2
Yeah,
series
there
cars.
are
Yeah,
some
it was
differences.
yeah.
There are some technical differences. They're only relatively minor, but especially around Bathurst, they do make a difference, and it's a shame in a way that that's happened. It would be nice to see TA2 become basically what Super 2 is to supercars eventually, if it gets big enough, where you perhaps have like a slightly down tuned, somewhat cheaper version of the Trans Am cars, because they look identical and they're not that much slower around any sort of basic track. So it'd be good to have them as a team. That's why I think it would be good to see Alice next year. It'd be great to see her move up into the Trans Am itself. I just don't hope they don't push her too quickly
Yeah.
into saying, "Oh, we're going to get you into the Carrera Cup." I mean, if they push her into the Carrera Cup, a totally different sort of car and a very, very cutthroat series.
Mm.
And if she starts, if she's not up the front, and if she starts riding off, being involved in any big accidents involving Porsches, it's going to be sort of, like waved
Yeah.
around. Oh yeah, look at this. We told you. But anyway, let's
Yes,
move on
definitely.
to
Yeah.
the
Mm.
other big event that was up there at Queensland Raceway. And
Uh, the-
speaking of big fields,
that
it
was
was
much bigger
yeah,
than last year.
it was a surprisingly big field. This is the thing about about the Australian Production Car Championship is that they have meetings where they barely can get together, sort of double digits. And then there are races, obviously like the 6 hours, but including this one, this fight in the night, where they get a really good field. And when they get a really good field with lots of cars going right throughout all of the different categories, it's very entertaining.
Yeah, it was quite, and there were 26 of them as well. Although I think there were short around four did not were unable to make the start for the fight in the night race. Like for example, the V8 Mercedes Benz was unfortunately an early victim out of the running, and yeah, I was unable to take part further. But we had some. The race itself was quite. entertaining. We did see, however, Hadrian Morrill and Tyler Mecklem in the Parramatta Vehicle Services Mustang was just a little bit too good for everybody else, though. Hadrian took off in the early running, built up a little bit of a gap before handing over to Tyler, and there they put on a fabulous show. But it was on for third place for right from the. We did see the Trent White's Mustang was an early. Was very quick early, but fell away unfortunately for them. And then we had the BMWs were actually a little bit missing in qualifying. The infamous BMW turbos that have dominated the Bathurst 12 hour. And to be fair, they were a little bit thin on the ground. One of the things, even though, like with not so many of the BMW turbos running at this race, there's a bit of a convergence with production car championship at Queensland state level as well. So there was quite a bit of cross pollination from both grids to bolster the Australian championship. Yeah, and Lindsay Kearns, who's front runner in both, in his Ford Mustang, which he co-drove with Brad Carr, and they had a really good run in the picked up one of the sprint races beforehand, before heading into the main race, and in the end they were just sort of ended up being a bit of best of the rest there in third place. They lost a lap late in the running to the Speed Cafe BMW M4 of Robert Gooley and Micah Tehorst. Yeah, they were just the like the top three kind of settled into their places, and we did see some great racing behind them. We saw Carly and Paul Baccini got up the order quite early in their M340 BMW. And they faded a little bit as the race went. Oh, but they went long early, and that put them right up to as high as second place at one point. We had Griffo and Tom Heyman in sharing Griffo's Mercedes A45 AMG. They came up through the running, as did, of course, the seemingly indestructible Mazda 3 MPS of Jay Camilleri. Griffo and Heyman came home in fourth behind the two Mustangs and the BMW M4. The Baccinis came home fifth. Then you had Camilleri in the Mazda 3. And a great drive. Class D was a fascinating affair. There was four of them going at it. They were all there were two Toyota 86s, a Subaru BRZ, which is essentially the same thing, and a BMW 130i, all going at it for Class D. They were spread over a lap and a half at the end of the race after 3 hours, and Emily Cacaviello and Annabelle Rolfo got up for the win in the Toyota 86, defeating the boys. So there was a bit of a bit of Forza the girls across the board at QR over the weekend. It was the margin over and it was it was the BMW that they had to beat in the end, and there was only 5 seconds between them. O'Connor and Jesse Dixon, who you might remember from, he was winner of one of the Shannon's, their reality TV series. What was it called?
Oh yeah,
That
yeah,
Grant
that was.
Denyer and Rick Kelly were involved in, and
Cameron Waters and
yeah, Cameron Waters won the first one, didn't he? And then the second
yeah.
one was won by Jesse Dixon. And unfortunately, Dixon, there's financial support for Dixon ran out a little bit, and he's been out of the sport for a few years. But he's coming back into it over the last couple of years, and been showing up in a few places here and there. And this is where one of the races, one of the categories where Jesse's shown up, and he's come home, almost got a class win. It was very close in the end. And you had Riley Beggs and in one of Toyota 86 just behind them, and Josh Trappett and Aston Davis sharing a Subaru BRZ. It was all really very close across the across that Class D field.
I think the interesting thing is that in terms of making the production cars, something better to watch. The fact that it wasn't sort of dominated by BMWs, and the fact that you do now have the Mustangs up the front, and Tony Quinn's
Oh,
Camaro,
poor
which had some
Quinny
problems.
and young McCutcheon.
Yeah, so the Camaro's up there as well. So that's a couple of, like they're not Australian. It's not like the days of
Mm.
Ford, Falcon, and Commodore, but they're more sort of, traditional in inverted commas, V8
Yeah.
V8 cars, and the fact that they're up there sort of, competitive and actually winning and beating on occasions the more, high tech European machines is very good. I think it's going to keep a lot more people. You've suddenly got that battle now. It's like, well, who's going to win? Whose side are you on? Are you on Team V8 or are you with Team Turbo? Or like it gives you something to sort of everybody something to hang their hat on, depending on what side they're coming from. And the racing was good. I mean, any racing under lights always
Mm.
looks better, and you get with the glowing discs and all the rest of it. So
Yeah,
yeah,
those Mustangs look spectacular.
yeah,
That was like the front brake rotors of the looked like little volcanoes buried deep in those front wheels. It was
that's why it'd be
quite
really
the
good
light
to
show.
see. That's why it'd be really good to see if they could do something with the 6 hour at Bathurst, or even have more more sort of like twilight races sort of spread around the year. I mean, okay, they want to run longer races. They've got Fight in the Night, which was that was a 3 hour
Mm.
race.
Mm. So yeah, it's half
You've got
half race distance of the which which by extreme coincidence is Queensland Raceway is exactly half the race lap distance of Bathurst.
Bathurst.
Almost 6.2, almost
So you could
3.1.
do, so you have the same thing, like at certainly Sydney Motorsport Park, and you don't need sort of a whole heap of them. If you had sort of,
Mm.
5 really good production car enduros over the course of the year at really good tracks, with a couple of them sort of running into the night on the Saturday, that would be along with the 6 hour. That would be a pretty good series. I think they'd get a lot more. It's when they sort of like they just go out and they're just sort of on the undercard of something, and they're out there for like a 1 hour race or a 2 hour race or something. People aren't all that interested, but if you can get out there and say, well, wouldn't it be great? I mean, bring back we used to have before the Bathurst 500, of course, was the Phillip Island 500. Let's revive the Phillip Island 500, make it for production cars, run it sort of, early in the year, and unfortunately they can't run that any time during the night, because number one, they'll hit up against the curfew, and number two is after about 5:30 the track will be full of kangaroos and wallabies.
And penguins.
And penguins,
I was
yes,
going to say,
and you do not do anything to upset the penguins.
Mm.
That's their cash cow. The
Yeah.
penguin is king at Phillip Island.
And plus, Canada geese is actually the size of a cow.
Yeah, well, they've certainly written off a few. I'm just waiting for, and I hope it never happens. I'm just waiting at some stage for one of those goose to be collected by a bike at the MotoGP or World
Ah,
Superbikes or something, because they are huge beasts. They wrote off a Group N Mustang years ago, came onto the main straight and hit one of them, and absolutely just totally wrote the car off. They're big birds, especially when they attack you out there, or you go around during the nesting seasons. It's quite confronting to be to be attacked by a couple of giant Cape Barren geese. Really, it certainly
no.
gets your attention.
I remember one of the Troys or Gary McCoy. One of them hit a seagull going down the front straight at
Seagulls are
Phillip
always
Island
getting,
once.
yeah, seagulls are always getting, because there was a wallaby collected at a state motorcycle round a while ago, and thankfully the rider wasn't badly injured, nor, believe it or not, was the wallaby. I believe that the wallaby was, but it led to like an hour long delay, because they were attending to the they were attending to the driver, but also they were attending to the wallaby, and they really made sure that the wallaby was looked after, and apparently the wallaby did make a recovery and was returned there. But you don't see them there. That's the thing is. But let me tell you, if you're out on at a state round or something like we were at the weekend, and and nature calls and you decide to duck behind a tree somewhere, they can frighten the living daylights out of you because they're all there, sometimes in their dozens. You walk there and go, oh bloody hell! There's all these eyes looking at you, and yeah, they hide away. They're very good at it, but they can sometimes they get a bit curious or a bit spooked, and they can run out onto the track along with the Cape Barren geese, the hares and rabbits, the echidnas, just about everything else that's down at Phillip Island. But that's part of Phillip Island. I mean, that's part of the charm.
You made mention of enduros. There was another one on the weekend, the more production sports car based field at One Raceway for the Wakefield 300. And
yeah, I didn't catch up with any of this, but that's always like an interesting little event. So, what can you tell us about that?
well, the winner of the race was a Maserati Trofeo. Mark
Yes,
Hudders, Mark Hudders, and one of the Lachlan's Manif. There are two of them, and I can never. We need Lockie Mansell along to explain which Manif was which. He represents one of them. But yeah, and they ended up having a pretty serious win in the end. I think they were 3 laps ahead of the Herring family with their Mazda MX-5 Turbo, with McLeod and Taylor in one of the BYP. Well, in fact, the two BYP Hondas came home third and fourth. And also 3 and then 4 laps down on the winning Maserati. But that was quite a big stick there at the front of the field. The various 300K format races have had some big stick cars like Porsches or some GTs show up from time to time, but it always then tends to still end up being one of the like a Mazda MX-5 or the Hondas or the cars that that have been the backbone of the 300K format for so many years still take them with. But yeah, Maserati Trofeo, 4.2 litre V8, that car. Congrats to the MC Corsa team, who've it looks as though they were pretty much in control of the field when it came down to it.
yes. As I said, also down here, of course, we had the August Access down at Phillip Island. Basically, sprints on Sunday. It was the whole meeting sort of revolved around the XL Nationals and the AU4. Now we put up on the In Pit Lane YouTube channel. If you haven't seen it yet, today I put up some interviews and some on-track footage that Doc and I took on the weekend or on Sunday from AU4. We spoke to the winner. The races first across the line in all 3 races was Noah Killian, 15-year-old driver out of Sydney. Was pretty dominant over the. Didn't run away with it. Had some good. Had some good battles early, but was pretty much in control for most of the weekend. He picked up a penalty. I don't know what for. It's very hard to get information out of it. This was one of the interesting things. As you'll see, have a look at the story, because we spoke to Adam Gotch from Team AGI, but he's also the category manager. And it was interesting because I talked about the fact that it had failed. Formula 4 had failed so dismally in its first incarnation. Why was this going to be any different? And he basically said that there was a demand from it, or demand for it from
Geneva.
From people who were looking to get their kids into into the dream of Formula One. And it's like we know that the pathway to Formula One is going straight out of karts into overseas. Go straight to Europe, etc., etc. However, we had people say it would be nice if we could have just had something local, that we would have been able to say, hang on a second, you weren't actually good at this here, so we're not going to sort of spend $1 million relocating the family to go overseas. But the prices, the prices he quoted this is for an arrive and drive package. It's $250,000 for the Australian series. Now you've got to wonder about the sustainability of something like that. $250,000, and here we were down at Phillip Island. There was, of course, no live streaming. There was no television. We were, as far as I could see, we were the only cameras. Me and Doc were the only two video camera people I saw on the day. In terms of picking up stuff on the track, I think the XLs had someone running around doing stuff for them. But in terms of how do you sell that? I mean, it's obviously sons and daughters of rich fathers and mothers, because it's $250,000. How do you go to a sponsor and say, oh yes, it's going to cost $250,000 for us to get the kid in there, but it's going to be, one of the rounds is going to be a closed club meeting, because there were people like outside on the field. I had people yelling at me through the gate along the Gap Road out the back, the beach road, basically saying, "Excuse me, mate, how do we get in? How do we watch it? How much does it cost to come in?" It's like, it does. You can't get in. This is, there were probably at one stage there were probably 30 or 40 cars parked along the back, outside of the circuit, trying to watch it, trying to get views of it. And there was no coverage of it at all. I haven't seen any reports in either Auto Action or Speed Cafe about it. I might be wrong, but I've seen nothing at all in the media there. So in terms of promoting it and making it sort of a big thing, I think it's going to struggle. I really do.
I've seen some coverage from the XL side of things mainly because I'm sort of plugged. There's so many of there's such a strong Queensland element in XL racing across the country. Mind you, only one Queenslander went down, and that was the 2023 champion Tyler Collins, on in that regard, Tyler's ended up fifth for the event, and that was a broken tie with Emily Jones. Ethan Greek Gold successfully defended his Australian championship ahead of Ryan Phillips and Toby Waghorn, and then Jones and Collins.
There was a good field. I mean, it wasn't as big as you've seen in some, but as you say, I mean, they were running at 41 up at field as well. On the weekend, so there would have been perhaps some cars up there that decided not to come down for it. And once again, because if it's not on one of the meetings that sort of has like any coverage. And you couldn't justify, I mean, like in terms of, someone said, well, so online, well, why isn't it being live streamed? Yeah, that'd be good, but somebody's got, it doesn't matter whether it's sort of, for 2 categories or 10 categories, it's still going to cost you $20,000 plus for the weekend to do that. Well, that's going to, somebody's got to pay for that, and that's going to be the competitors. And that's going to be a lot of, it's going to be a lot of money, and they're already saying, oh, it's too much. It's too much money. But the other interesting thing that came out of it, young Jensen Marold, who won the Gen 1 cars, the older model cars, the cars that raced in the CAM series, he had a good weekend. He won all 3 races. He was really good to talk to, because the interesting thing was he's also running Formula Ford in Perth with Brett Lupton. And it was really interesting, because I sort of said to him, well, you're an ideal person to talk to in terms of like the difference between the 2 cars and what you're learning, what one gives you that the other, what you get from one category that you don't get from the other category. And I'm not sure whether the Formula 4 people will be through all that, because he basically said, oh, Formula Ford is amazing. You learn so much in Formula Ford. You get, there's no aerodynamics. You learn about mechanical grip. You learn about racecraft. They're much more fun to drive. And it's like, I'm thinking, this probably wasn't what I was expecting. I thought he'd be saying, oh yeah, these cars are just so much more sophisticated, and you've got so much more downforce, and they're so much faster. And he's saying, no, Formula Ford, man, that's just cool. It's the best thing out there.
I think that's a refrain that we've heard for, well over a decade now. That yeah, we love our Formula Fords, and it still remains the entry level of choice for so many young racers in this part of the world.
And I think that's going to be the problem for Formula 4 is that there's going to be, there's only going to be a very small selection of people who are going to be able to afford that unless they can open that up to, and I know that this is part of the plan that Adam has got for the category, unless they can open it up more to, kids coming down from Asia or even, the Middle East and even from Europe or America to basically do a local series because it's cheaper or it's easier or whatever. I really can't see that you're going to have the demand there. If it's going to cost you, $250,000, to go right now that's just his team. I don't know how much Tim Macros has. And the thing is, the very professional units, absolutely, to watch them, the setup of both of them and how they were training their drivers and what they were getting out of it. I mean, Tim was sitting down. Doc got footage of Tim sitting down with his drivers and sitting up there going through all the telemetry and going the in-car camera stuff and giving them tips and all the rest of them. They were doing that in the AGI camp as well. So it's a great learning thing, but you've to be able to come up with, let's say, 200,000, even just $200,000 for a series that basically has no coverage. Obviously, there was no crowd. I mean, it was basically it was a handful of photographers, marshals, and us, and friends and family of the teams, and they were the only people who saw it on the weekend because there was no live coverage and no crowd. And a lot of people just said, I spoke to someone who was not a huge motor racing fan, but I said I was going down. They went, oh, it looks like it might be fine. I said, I might go down. It's like, sorry, you can't.
Yeah. Just actually on the subject of Formula Ford, I probably should send a shout out to our most recent graduate out of Queensland Formula Ford to go on and do stuff, and Liam Iacono, who's moved to the United States and was running in the US. USF Juniors, the third tier of US, I guess, USF Formula 2000 um, over there in the US, and he's finished runner-up for the season.
Yeah, that was another thing that Adam was talking about too. He said there was an increasing focus from some of the competitors, but not just in Australia, but also in Asia where they operate as well. There was increasing interest from people, to look towards racing in America because it was a much more straightforward sort of pathway and and more accessible in terms of dollars. That when you have a look at like people like, and I mentioned him before, like Hugh Barter who raced and finished second in the Spanish and the French Formula 4 Championship, beat a lot of the people who are now running in Formula 2 and even Formula 1, but just just ran out of money. And this is what the young Jensen was saying. He said it's because I said, what are your plans for the rest of the year? I mean, where does this place you in the championship? And he said, oh, we probably can't win. We're probably only going to do one more round because we just don't have the money to do the whole championship. So, and I said, like I asked him about how frustrating it was that he was obviously at least on the weekend, he was obviously the class of the field in that class, although it was very close racing. I think as Phil just said before, it was good to see that the racing was so close. And they look good. The cars are fantastic. The new cars, the Tatus, is a wonderful car to look at. It is in every way it is a miniature Formula One car. It looks great. They don't sound good, but they're turbocharged, but they look really good. Look very professional, very modern. And if you could get a really good field of them and you get some decent money and get them on, say, the supercar card or something, or even SRO, you could possibly see a way forward for them. But the interesting other thing was talking to Adam about the next step, which is what was Formula Three, would be Formula Regional. They postponed that series until next year, basically because of difficulty getting cars and getting numbers and all the rest of it. And
Yeah.
he didn't seem to want to talk too much about it. I think they're going to have a real struggle getting that off the ground, because if it's going to cost you $250,000 to do a season of Formula 4, how much is it going to cost you to do a series of AU3? Um, you
I
know,
think part of the problem with AU3 this year, at least, was the guys who were running at the pointy end last year were moving on. So there just wasn't enough people coming through to replace them. Like we saw Miles Bromley, for instance, who was one of the two front runners of the of AU3 last year. Miles is over in the US doing USF Pro 2000. He did the final round of the year over there at Portland. He's been working with one of the ladder US F2000 teams over there for all year, and got a shot in the car in one of the race cars on the weekend. Unfortunately, it didn't really go well for him. He was a early retirement in both races at the final round. This was just a week or so ago at Portland, where all three of the US open wheel ladder stacks deep. They have a 5-tier system. Like there are 5 levels of open wheel racing and that's the direct IndyCar ladder. That doesn't then include stuff like that's slightly to the left of that, like for example, Formula Regional Americas, which oddly enough isn't on the well, not oddly enough, because it's Mazda helps out quite a bit with the lower tiers of USF 2000. And yeah, well, there's Aussies and New Zealanders all over the entire US ladder system these days. In the Lockie Hughes is running at upper and was running in USF 2000. We've had Tommy Smith in Indy Next, NXT. A couple of Lockie Hughes was Lockie Hughes was third place in the championship for the Indy NXT, and there's one round remaining in that's 2 rounds, Milwaukee then Nashville. But yeah, there's a bunch of drivers in Eddie Beswick. You'll probably remember
yes.
Brett and Pete from Victorian Formula Ford, and he's in the second of the 3 USF 2000 championships. And he's
It certainly is an alternative, route to, pathway to something in the
yeah.
sport. I mean, it's always going to be difficult because there's only so many places available, and it's so much of it comes down to money. But there's only ever going to be sort of like your 20 main Formula One drivers, and there's only going to be sort of like limited numbers in even IndyCar or things like that. At least now you've got the sports car realm that you can look at. I mean that's obviously some options along that. Speaking of which, coming up this weekend, the next round of the European Le Mans Series that is running. Australia's James Allen will be. I notice he's back
Awesome.
in his LMP2 car again. A driver that I've mentioned several times, really should be up to at least a regular in WEC. I mean, he's won Le Mans, he's won his class at Le Mans, he's won his class at Daytona. He's been very successful over the years, and he just, once again, it probably comes down to money. He just, when the people he's racing with, move into full-time roles, I think it's, James is like, okay, we'd love to have you, but, can you bring us $500,000? And obviously he can't.
No, Scott Andrews, another one in
Scott
similar.
Andrews, yeah.
Yeah, very similar place. More of the US side than the European side, like James Allen is. And yeah, there's a couple of other guys over there in similar positions because, like Fraser Ross uh, is landed in the LMP2 / LMP3 world over there in the
Yeah,
Le
that's
Mans Cup.
interesting because
And
he's very much sort of very much the definition of a gentleman driver. I mean, but he's really come up. I mean, running sort of like historic Group S cars over here and running Group C Falcons and then in historic touring cars and all the rest of it. Now he goes over and he's running around in LMP2 cars, and that's really good news. Also, as Phil's pointing out, I'll point out that coming up this weekend locally, well, as we mentioned before, Leyburn up in Queensland is going to be huge. It will be live streamed. You can watch it. We believe it's going to be on the Speed Cafe YouTube channel, and probably other places as well that
yeah,
they've done
go to
deals with.
then go to the the historic Leban Sprints website to connect up to the live stream there.
Yeah, so that'll certainly be great to watch. It's a major event. It's become one of the events of the local motorsport
We had
scene.
18,000 people along last year, and it was amazing crowd. We're really looking forward to we've got bumper field, 260 entries this year, and there's some absolutely wicked bits of gear coming along. We'll have 100-year-old race car in the field, an 100-year-old Austin 7, driven by I think an 86-year-old driver. There's That's car number one on the list, Justin McCarthy in his little Austin 7. We've got three cars from the 1949 Grand Prix. Are going to be in town. Like the ex Peter Critchley MGTV is run by the Schiller family every year in the Leeuwen Sprints. But we also got the ex Phillip Island MGTC and the GK Special, which I think was running down your way at his the Phillip Island Historics earlier this year. Um, I'm just trying to find that. Yeah, that was driven by Ross Gray in the Grand Prix. Unfortunate early retirement, but yeah, one of those George Reed built Ford V8 specials from the era. The rest of the entry, we've got three Group C touring cars in the field. Two Group Cs and two Group As. There's um, a Gary Wilmington XD Falcon, the old Buckley Exhaust Master RX-7, a Lansvale VL Commodore, and a Gibson Motorsport Nissan Skyline, the second generation, the first of the six-cylinder cars. The car that Greg Murphy? No, Stephen
Steve
Richards was
Richards.
racing at Goodwood earlier this year.
A
That
lot of
model.
those other Group C cars are probably going to be out at Sandown on the weekend as well because they are running touring cars out at Sandown with the big V8s and my sons, but also it's a round of the National Formula Ford Championship as part of the
Ah,
Victorian State, so they're going to be running on the weekend as well as the National Sports Sedan Championship, and it seems to be a really good, a better entry than I've seen for a long time for the National Sports Sedans. I think pretty much most of the major competitors are there. Unfortunately, Tom Randall, who appears every now and again in the Saab, won't be out there. But the John Goulet Audi has been repaired apparently, and should be I think
oh, good.
is entered and should be back. Daniel Tomasi is out there as well in the Calibri. You've got the Jeff Taunton, who's currently
And
leading the
Daniel and
championship.
Stephen, both of them, both the Tomazis. Because
I'm
I
not.
noticed that they have been
Yeah,
out testing their
they were
other
out at
car, the
Calder. Yeah, they were
Nissan
out at
300
Calder.
ZX. Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm not sure what's happening there, but it's certainly a good, lineup. I mean, and then all of your regular state categories as well. But there are a few sort of sort of ring-ins along the way. So it'll be an interesting meeting. It will be live streamed on Blendline as per usual. Phil pointing out also that, I suppose depending on the weather, Red Hill will be open on Sunday. Red Hill's the area between Dandenong Road and the entrance to the main straight, the where you can park your car. It's a great spot if you want. That's if I go on Sunday. If I go and I'm not sure exactly what we can and what we can't do out there anymore in terms of coverage, and we certainly don't cover stuff on the track anymore. But if I do go out there at all, just head out on Sunday, go to Red Hill, park the car, take a picnic lunch, just sit in the car and watch the cars coming over the top through the S's round Dandenong Road. It's a great place to watch motorsport. It's a really friendly atmosphere around the joint. People often take marquees and all the rest of it, and set up and make a real day of it. So so that's happening on Sunday. So if you can get out there, that'll be a lot of fun. Tickets please from Eric. No, we don't have tickets anymore. It was hard enough to get them when we were on Channel 31. It would be impossible for us to get it now, unfortunately. As I said, I'm not sure even that I can get in. And as I said, I'm not really sure what we can even film there anymore. Sandown is impossible to film at. If you're, it's just a really, really bad track. I'm sure Phil will agree with me on this one. It's there's very limited spots you can go at. So basically, there's about 3 spots that photographers can go to. So you all end up with whether it's stills or video, you all end up with the same bloody angle of the same bloody corner over and over again, because they're the only 3 or 4 spaces, the only places you can actually go nowadays. So
I suppose the horse track makes things a bit inaccessible.
It's not so much the horse; it's just the lack of runoff area and all that. And they've just places where we used to be able to stand. They've just said once again with insurance, they've just said no, you can't stand there. I mean, places that we filmed. When we used to cover the state series with multiple cameras, we'd have 5 cameras out there. Of those spots, there were 5 cameras. 3 of those camera positions are now off limits.
Yeah.
So really, so unless you go there, so Blendline TV will go there with scaffolding. You have to have scaffolding now. If you want to cover it with video, you have to have scaffolding. You have to bring scaffold in and put it where they tell you to put it. Well away from the side of the track so you can get a decent view. Otherwise, you're not seeing anything there with a video camera, because you just can't go into the places that you used to be able to go. But anyway, go down. I think it's only about $30 or something. So if you're $30 for a day of action, and somebody who might be there taking some photos. We got Phil online, but we've also got Ian Smith. Ian, one of the great photographers. If you go back over the years, we've got. If you haven't seen our interviews with Ian on the In Pit Lane YouTube channel and some of his famous photos, go out and check them out. But Ian, thanks to say that they're great to see In Pit Lane still online. Yeah, we're still ploughing on. We're not sure what the long-term plan is at this stage, but. Best spot. Eric's saying best spot, grandstand for the spread. Yeah, if you're not going to be up at Red Hill, certainly, and if the weather's crook, the grandstand is terrific. I remember Tom Kendall, the American Trans Am driver who came out to drive with Dick Johnson many years ago in the Sandown 500. Him standing in the media centre up the top. In one of the rooms up there, sort of looking out, and it was because it was the Sandown 500, the place that was looking better. They had the fountain going in back in those days. They had the fountain going in the middle of the lake, and all the rest of it. And he just looked around and he went, "My God!" He said, "What we'd do for a track like this?" He said, "You're almost you're in the middle of suburbia, and and he said, look at it, just the facilities and." He just couldn't believe it. He just said it was just so good. So it's a great venue. It's nice to know that it should be around for a little bit longer anyway. Certainly longer than we ever thought it would be. So That's coming up. Of course, later in the year we've got the November Historics. That'll be good. And they announced today tickets have now gone on sale for the first Sandown Revival. And as we mentioned a couple of weeks ago, always said that that if you wanted to do a Goodwood Festival of Speed in Australia, Sandown would probably be the place to do it. And I think that's what Chris and the team from the Geelong Revival have in mind with the Sandown Revival. Although unfortunately they are going to be limited somewhat in terms of the race cars because of the noise restrictions. Because they're already booked out solid for the rest of the year for the 5 rounds they're allowed to run at the 95 decibels. So I think they're going to be limited to about 80, which is ridiculous because my electric lawnmower apparently kicks out about 85 decibels. So it's just it was crazy. Thanks, Ian, once again saying happy to keep presenting images for cover. Oh yes, that's coming up. There's the ARC in Gippsland. Doc was going to head out there. Well, fortunately for him, he's got a gig at I think it's a caravan and camping show or something out of Flemington. He's got a gig out there that he's doing a paid gig. So so he'll be out there instead of the rally. But the rally will happen this weekend. I think, unfortunately or fortunately, depending which way you look at it, the weather's not going to be brilliant. It is going to fine up over the next couple of days. We're getting a few. We're starting to get to the end of winter. It's creeping up back into the high teens, and I think a Thursday it's going to be about 19 or something. But then on the weekend things turn really quickly again. So we're back down to about 12 or 13 and pouring with rain. So
well, we're going to have some weather here in Brisbane in the next couple of days, but it will be done before the weekend. The rain will not spill over into the Leaven Historics.
Yeah, we got the opposite here. I mean, we have fabulous weather during the week when everybody's locked away and working, and then as soon as the weekend hits, but it hasn't been bad. And I must admit, I was unaware of how bad the drought is. We actually are in a drought down here, and I was, like most city slickers, I'm blissfully unaware of just how bad it is. And when I was out at Calder, one of the clerk of course, race control at Calder for the roll racing and drag racing, said that she was working with the RSPCA around her area, and they were rescuing a lot of cattle and a lot of sheep and horses and all that who are basically starving because there is just simply no rain. They're having real trouble for the feed just hasn't come through. And I actually covered it on the ABC radio the other day, and I was unaware of how bad it is, but it's they're saying if we don't get some really decent spring rains, it's going to be a huge crisis come summer because there's just been very, very little rain at all down here. So I think all of it's falling on Sydney at the moment. Sydney has done nothing but rain. So there you go. Okay, guys, we better move out of here. Doc is here. I'll just let you know, MotoGP, Marc Marquez wins everything. Really bad weekend for the Yamahas. Poor Jack Miller was right at the end of the field. The Yamahas were the last 4 bikes home. They were in a really bad way. They were really struggling. So, it was a bad weekend for them. Young Senna, Age of Senna, had a big accident in Moto 2. Thankfully not seriously injured, but it looked really terrible when it happened. But he's okay. He's okay, thankfully, and he'll obviously, by the look of it, be back in action by the time, probably for the next round, and also by the time obviously they get down to Phillip Island, and they haven't started their action. You can see a lot of work, a lot of little tidying up work is still being done at Phillip Island. There's looks of new painted areas here and there, and bits and pieces. So they're getting ready for the Grand Prix. And they'll probably start setting up in the next few weeks. So, because it takes them, because they've got to bring everything in, because there's nothing down there. I mean, there's no spectator facilities at all. So it's basically like a street circuit, all those grandstands and everything else that has to go in there, and all the administrative offices and all the things that the teams need. That all has to be brought in. Corporate boxes, marquees, everything. It's a it's a big build every year down at the island, but it'll be once again hugely popular. Camping for the Bathurst 12 hour. Also, if you camp, they've got a new system this year. I'm sure prices are going up. I haven't seen by how
Yep.
much.
You mean the 1,000 coming up, or
No,
next
no,
year's
no.
12 hour?
The 12 hour. Next year's 12 hour camping
26
goes on.
12 hour. Okay.
Yeah, so that's gone on. That's going on sale. And they've got a thing. They're basically running it like they've run the 1,000. If you had a spot this year, you can automatically you'll have first offer on that same spot for next year, which is a really good idea. But as I said, I'm sure the prices will go up substantially because it was sold out really quickly, particularly down in the paddock area. It is the way, if you want to see the 12 hour, if you want to make a real week of it, camp at the track. I normally would never say that, and I'm not doing it. I've already got my hotel room booked, but I'd love to do it. I really would, because it is the best way of doing it for the weekend. It's just fabulous. Okay, any Formula One stuff or anything quickly we need to talk about?
All on summer break.
Yeah, I saw Kim Illman did a live stream today where basically he spoke about the weather and going fishing and all sorts of things. It was very entertaining, but it was, people were asking about what's happening here, what's happening. He said, we've got no idea. Everybody's on a break. No one's talking to anybody. Everything's shut down completely. So, there's really nothing to talk about on the Formula One.
Dutch Grand Prix is next.
Dutch Grand Prix is at the end of the
How
month.
far away? End
of August.
Yeah. So that's so we're not too far away.
Couple of weekends away.
I will just say briefly before we go, our commiserations to the family of Joseph Bianchini, a young New South Wales karter, 13 years old, who passed away. I believe it was a medical situation, a condition that he had that he deteriorated very, very quickly. You can only imagine the incredible heartbreak it must be for the friends and family. 13 years old, and to be taken like that. I mean, as we've said before, just none of us are guaranteed tomorrow. So be very grateful for the time you have with the people you love, and tell them regularly that you love them, because one more, as I say, treat every day as it's going to be your last, because one day you'll be right. And you don't know when that will be. So our commiserations to the family and friends and everybody in the karting scene over the passing of Joseph. Saw that this morning, was really didn't know the kid at all, but was really heartbreaking story, very sad. Some people have asked about the situation with Sunil Vohra out at Motorsport Australia. Obviously, Sunil had been a guest on the show relatively recently, and seems to have been removed by the board. No reasons have been given. A lot of people are nudge, wink, wink, and saying, "Oh, we all know why," but I don't. I've heard stories. I'm not going to raise them here because I've heard different stories, and I'm not going to speculate over anything. I just know that in our dealings with him, the few dealings we had with him when he came on the show, when we saw him out the track, and I only saw him a couple of weeks ago at Sandown, said hello. He's always been very helpful to us, as was his predecessor in Eugene Rocker, but he was always very helpful to us. I hadn't heard sort of anything bad about it, but obviously there's been a problem. It would be really nice. I'm sure it won't happen, but Motorsport Australia is a member-run organisation. I think the members, at least, should be told exactly why this decision has been made. If this decision has been made, then they need to be told, because all Andrew Fraser said was, he got the books back in the black again. He's done a fantastic job in reorganising the speed series and all the rest of it. We thank him for his fabulous work, but piss off. We really should know why. As I said, I'm sure we won't get it. But if you are a Motorsport Australia member, I would be jumping up and down and saying, okay, there might be valid reasons for this, but tell us what the hell they are. And also, because they've become very increasingly secretive over the past few years. Motorsport Australia. You used to be able to go online and see, minutes of meetings of state boards and various committee meetings. You haven't been able to do that for ages. You don't know what the hell goes on in the place. So I don't know why. I don't know why he's been removed, but some people obviously say they do, and people who are experienced, like Paul Gover and a few others, have popped up and said, "Oh yeah, we know the reason why." Well, as I said, I don't. But anyway, good luck to Sunil. I think that from our point of view, he was very helpful to us. He certainly, when we announced that we were leaving Channel 31, he said, "Look, if there was anything we could do to make it easier for you, we would, certainly we would like to help out, because we can see some value in this." But unfortunately, that's the situation. As I said, motorsport will eat itself. Okay, everybody, we'll see.
Nürburgring was back on the weekend as well after their long layoff for the 24-hour. And post of that, Falcon Tyres Porsches finished 1-2.
1-2, yeah. So that's on YouTube. Also,
Klaus
go
Buckley,
online. Laguna Seca, that was on over the weekend. That was live streamed as well. Go and have a look at that. Once again, they do historic racing really, really well. There's an awful lot that the local scene can learn from American and New Zealand and European historic racing. I'm sorry, I've got to say this. Historic racing in Australia is appallingly run. It is a mess compared with what's happening overseas. And when you have a look at, they've named in New Zealand, they're going to have a trophy race in memory of Tim Miles. For Formula Atlantic and Pacific cars. They had the race under a different name like last season. They probably had 20 cars on that grid. And that's just Formula Atlantic. They have 14 or 15 Formula 5000s on it when you see the lineup of historic cars that are running in New Zealand, and from my one experience of going over for Hampton Downs all those years ago, boy, do they do so much better than we do over here. It's really frustrating because it could be so big over here, and it just on the local scene they just stuff it up completely because there's too many egos involved and too much internal politics going on. So anyway, it's frustrating. Okay, guys.
But not Liebern. Liebern's good.
No, Liebern's good. Look, things like Liebern, there's some great things. Liebern, Baskerville, Malala. Terrific. The May Winton meeting, great again. The meetings good. Yeah, Phillip Island obviously is huge, but there's so many people. I was speaking to actually one yesterday who's got 3 cars that he could run. They're cars from the 1990s. And he can't run them because they're not considered historic cars. And one of them is not considered a historic car because it meets the criteria in terms of age, but it's a carbon fibre chassis and they won't let it run because of that. Even though it was running at the time against cars that are already running in Group R. Okay, let's get out of here, guys. Thanks a lot for joining us. Really appreciate it. We'll see you next week on Full Course Yellow. Go on to the In Pit Lane YouTube channel. Check out the stuff from the weekend down at Phillip Island. And hopefully, while I'm recovering from the dreaded lurgy, I might have time to finish the stuff from Sandown as well from the GTs. Okay, catch you later. Hopefully catch you next week. See you later, everybody. Bye for now.